Hey everyone, welcome to another Speed Secrets podcast. Today is going to be a little different. Actually, I was thinking about this. This is technically the start of the 5th season of the Speed Secrets podcast, which is a little bit cheating because I took about a year off. So it's kind of cheating. But to celebrate that, or maybe just to mix things up, I'm going to do something a little different. Have a guest co-host, or I guess host, Bill Fischer, on the show with me. Bill, thank you you're going to run the show. It's all yours. I'm just going to sit back and just listen to you talk now. Go.
No pressure at all. Thank you, Ross. We talked a little bit earlier about, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to see you at a track or talk to you, and maybe they'd have some questions. And we thought it might be a good idea to address some of those on your podcast so you could kind of, give back even more to the sport than you already have. So, I took the opportunity, and I've got a whole list of questions, and everybody else can jump to the front of the line if they send some in. But we thought we'd go over a few of those and start this off. So,
well, that's cool. I mean, I've had the chance of you asking me some questions on your podcast, the Garage Heroes in Training. And actually, before we go any further, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
How'd you come up with the name Garage Heroes in Training?
So it's kind of complicated, but I'll try and make it short. So It's a collection of a bunch of 3 families and some friends, and we all seem to have a common interest in comic books and comic book movies and things like that. So the heroes came in, and then we thought, you want to be driving heroes, and then we were thinking, well, it's more encompassing what we were trying to do. So we were going to be garage heroes, and then we were. I thought that was a great idea, but I talked to Vicky, my wife, and I said, that's kind of presumptuous, and that we've never raced on a track before, and we may be bad, or we will likely be bad. So we came up with you're always trying to improve, so why don't we put the in training in part, so we can at least state the goal, which is to be a garage hero, but state the factual we're in training. So that's kind of how the whole thing came to be, and then we theme our cars as superhero cars.
So superheroes with training wheels.
Yeah. Well, the big joke has always been, we should change the relative perspective on our logo and change the in heroes to be much bigger letters than the garage heroes, and make much smaller letters. But we're trying to change it, but we're working on it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for doing this, and we're kind of switching roles, but in another way, not.
Oh, I know you'll be asking questions. There's no doubt.
Because that's just who I am. But
exactly.
But one of the things that I love doing is this Q&A thing, and I do these chalk talks every now and then, and I do this Ask Ross column on my website and stuff like that. So give me your best questions. Your goal is to stump me here, which shouldn't be that difficult.
Well, my best questions aren't the ones I highlighted, but okay, no pressure now. No. All right, we're gonna stay with one, and the one thing that people may not understand, and may not understand the true value is what is a racing coach, and what does a racing coach do? I know you do it, and you do it quite well. You've got a bunch of people you work with, and probably you'll never be able to deal with everybody you want to. But some people will sit there and say, well, I don't need a coach. I know how to drive, or what could they teach me? And they may not even understand the value that a coach or an instructor could have, and the amount of improvement they could see much faster if they had that assistance, and just because they just don't know.
Well, I'm glad you started with a question that will take 4 hours to answer.
You've got a podcast. We've got lots of tape here.
So. Right. Tape. Yeah. So what is a coach? So by my definition, there are teachers, there are instructors, and there are coaches. And by the way, not one of those is more important than the other. They're all equally as important, but they work with people at different levels. Maybe even levels is not the right thing, but there's a time and a place where my job is to give you information, to teach you something, to give you some knowledge. And I think about that as kind of like putting information into you, and or you learning from the outside in. An instructor tends to do some of that, but also a little bit of some demonstration, some illustration, And, if you think about the typical HPDE, high performance driver education instructor, they tell the student what to do. They demonstrate what the student should do. They hopefully model what the student should do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of a mixture there. And then a coach, the way I look at coaching is, first of all, the way I look at coaching is I do whatever it takes. If I'm at the track and I'm coaching you, Bill, and I think, if you just had 10 minutes to sit down before this next session and just really close your eyes and relax, but you're really not going to have time to go and get lunch, I'll go get you lunch. Like, that's whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes to help you perform better. So that's the first part. But a lot of coaching to me is drawing out what you already know. So yeah, we joke that I'll ask questions because coaching is a lot of, not all of it, but a lot of coaching is asking questions and drawing out information that you already know. If you are if you're an expert in mechanical engineering and I come along and start telling you something about mechanical engineering, there's a little bit of you in the back of your mind going, dude, I know something here. Like, don't try to ram it down my throats. Right. But if I say, hey, Bill, can you explain to me how friction works? You then explain it to me, and in the process, you're learning. And so it's kind of learning from the inside out is the way I look at it. So that's the first part, I guess, just that definition of what is a coach. So there are a lot of people, I'd say, in the country, in North America, in the world, who call themselves coaches. And by my definition, they're more of an instructor. And again, there's nothing wrong with that because there's a time and a place for a driver to have an instructor.
Absolutely.
And so, but a lot of times, I don't know, some people seem to think that a coach is a sexier title than instructor. I don't know what to me, there are times that I call myself an instructor and there are times I call myself a coach. And again, I don't see one as better than the other. It's just a little bit different. And so when I really, really look at it, and I talk to fellow coaches, and if I have a really good conversation with one of those fellow coaches, we've had that conversation of how many coaches do you think there are in North America? And by the definition of a professional coach, somebody that makes a living by being the best coach they possibly can, and not just somebody that's at the track coaching / instructing. So they're at the track and maybe that's going to turn into a chance for them to drive.
Right.
Then, so a professional coach, there might be a dozen, maybe 24, the very, very most in North America by that definition. And again, I'm not saying that is the definition, but it is a definition.
Sure. So go ahead.
And it's going to kind of, you ask the question of what does a coach do? Or how can a coach help? The first response is, tell me another athlete in the world that doesn't have a coach. And, of course, just because somebody else does it doesn't mean that you should. But if you want to improve, a lot of times the most efficient way of improving is by having a coach. And that coach can, the great thing about coaching is if the coach really helps you learn something at a deep level and not just, here, copy what I do, which helps to a certain extent. But if I really help you learn and understand and figure out something on your own, that is something that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And so that's, unlike a go bolt on a new set of tires. Yes, you're going to go faster until they wear out. Right. What a coach provides shouldn't wear out. Yes, you may need refreshers, that kind of stuff, but the deep learning that comes from good coaching never wears out.
So I think there's a couple of combinations, and the reason why we started with this question was, I think you can often address the why, because knowing to do something without a why just knowing how to do something, you can eventually you will get yourself in trouble.
Yes.
And
and I could just say yes with an exclamation mark. To me, one of the most important parts is the why. I see drivers, and I'll ask the question a lot of times, why do you drive the line that you drive? And the answer that a driver comes back with, if they're really honest and they really think about it, is, well, that's the line somebody told me I should drive.
Sometimes, yeah.
And okay, maybe the car feels good there, but if you really truly understand the dynamics of what's going on with the car, the track, the surface, the elevation changes, all of those things, and you really understand that, then you understand the why, and then you could really go, well, the reason I drive that line is because of this. And that's a whole other level of understanding.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other aspect of why should I or why would I want to have a coach, I already know how to drive. I drive every day. I drive 20, 30, 40, pick a number, 1,000 miles a year. I already know how to do this. And I think as you dig deeper into the hole that we call high performance driving and competing and racing and track days or whatever event you're attending, you realize often what you're doing on the street is exactly opposite of what you should be doing on the track. And sometimes the differences can be counterintuitive. And it's just, that while it's experience in doing something similar, it's not experience in doing something the same.
Exactly. And, there's that old joke, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but the old joke that, well, there's at least two things that you can never teach a man.
For sure.
How to make love and how to drive a car, because we were all born knowing how to do that, right? And,
absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think that is part of the problem, is who doesn't drive. So, like you said, the natural extension from that is, well, I drive on the street, so I should be able to drive on the track. But
for sure,
that's kind of like saying, you're about to board an airplane to fly from New York to Los Angeles, and you walk up to the pilot and say, "Tell me what you're training." And they go, "I fly a Cessna." But don't worry, it's just a plane. I've never flown one of these 747s, but it's just a plane.
Just a little bigger.
How do you feel sitting in that seat, right?
I don't think I'll be sitting in that seat, sir. I think I will be turning around.
Yeah.
So, so I know this is not probably going to come to a shock to you, Ross, and most everybody who listens to the podcast. There's this thing that a lot of drivers have, and you may have noticed it once or twice. They have an ego.
Oh, really?
It's new. I just noticed it a couple weeks ago, and they oftentimes don't want to hear either what they're doing is wrong or another way of doing it that makes what they're doing not quite what they should be doing, and they're not open to that. And I think the biggest difficulty that you may have, maybe not the biggest, but a big difficulty you may have, is actually getting somebody to open up and be acceptance of alternative ideas or your inputs. Is that true?
Yes. And I'd say, traditionally this sport has certainly been in, there have been a lot of drivers who have been there. Can you imagine somebody walking up to AJ Foyt in the 60s and 70s and saying, "Hey, let me coach you"? He probably would have taken a hammer and beaten the person, right?
I don't think he needed a hammer. He's a pretty big guy. At least he looked like it on TV. So.
Yeah. So I think, certainly there's a cultural or traditional kind of part of that where it's just, you're right. I know how to drive. I don't need to be taught how to drive. And
I'm a natural driver.
Exactly. Well, then, that's a whole other topic around natural part. But there's the if we all drive on the street, then we all should be able to drive on the track, right? That's the assumption, right? But there's the good news is that ego can be used in a good way. The bad news, it can be used in a bad way. One of the things that makes drivers fast on a track is confidence, self-belief.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always say there's a very, very fine line between a person's belief system, which starts with the letters BS, and a person's ego, which starts with BS.
Yeah.
So having confidence is great, but having so much confidence that you go, I don't need any help, nobody can tell me how to be even better, that's just, it's going to limit the amount of learning and the improvement.
Yeah, and as with most things in life, and especially most things in racing, you can do things the proper amount, but doing too much of them can lead to problems.
Well, there's that old saying of doing the wrong thing with more effort isn't going to work.
Yeah, and the old I'll just break deeper and harder. Eventually, it's too deep or too hard or not possible. So it leads to a bad outcome, and it
leads to breaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaking something. Yeah,
not the good way.
Yeah.
So I guess we've got a coach. By your definition, there's a few of them, but there's other people that you should look to for instruction or for assistance or for trying to improve, because being an engineer background, I want to do things well, and I want to do things well as efficiently and quickly as possible, because I want to get more well. Engineer, not English major. So how do I know if I've selected someone to work with who is a quote unquote a good one, or how do I know that I need to run away?
So I could answer that in a couple different ways. One would be part of the job is selecting the right person for you. What I know about you is you're very process oriented.
I try.
You, as an engineer, you want to see things in a process. And I know some coaches that probably would have a difficult time clicking with you. And
so you could have a personality aspect to it.
Yeah. So I guess, the question can be, how do I select the right coach? I mean, part of it is for you to understand how you best learn. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, then you can start to think about who's going to be the best person that's going to be able to communicate for me. I'd say the second part of that is knowing what it is that you really want to improve, and where do you think, what do you think is going to help you the most? And maybe you don't even know yet, but if you're a person that's like, well, I really love to look at the data and the video, then I'd find a coach who is very, very strong in using data and video. If you're sitting there going, I'm pretty fast, but man, I'm not very consistent, and I tend to lose my focus, and sometimes I get really frustrated. And man, I've had a couple of red mist sessions where I just turned into an animal out there. And other days where I just can't get into it. Well, then you're going to want somebody that's going to help you more on the mental game side of driving. And maybe you're at a point when you're driving where you're like, I don't understand the why of the line through a corner. Then you need somebody that's really good at explaining and communicating those concepts. So I think, if you're selecting a coach, it's first of all it's a little bit of self-reflection in terms of what is it that you want? How do you best learn? Understanding what's the best communication style for you, and then looking around and finding the right coach for that situation for you. So I don't know if that didn't really
answer. It does. I think the one question that I had going in, and you took it to the one thing I love about listening to your podcast is you'll often start the answer in one spot and you'll take it somewhere else.
Which you get off track?
No, never, because off track is bad. But but it gives you another way of looking at the problem from a different angle. But the I guess where I was trying to originally go with the question was, should I judge a coach strictly by my lap time?
No.
improvement?
Simple answer. Well,
sometimes you may go slower, I would think, to get better.
So if the question is how do I know if the coach is helping me?
Yes.
Then first of all, know what it is you want to achieve. I know some drivers who the lap time is everything to them, or winning more races is everything to them. I know other drivers are where they just want to feel more comfortable in the car. They want to be able, if they drove the same lap time, but they were able to do it more consistently and more comfortably and more relaxed and having more fun doing that, they would be happy with that. So I think understanding what your goals are, and again, I mean, my way of looking at coaching is my job is to do whatever it takes to help you achieve your goal. And if your goal is simply to have more fun, man, we're going to have fun. If your goal is, I want to win the SCCA runoffs, or I want to win the Indy 500, or I want to win an autocross next weekend or the national championships, then I'm going to do everything I possibly can to help you do that. And if I'm not able to do that, get rid of me, because the best coach in the world isn't the best coach in the world for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely see that. I think that the one thing I didn't want somebody to do was think, if this coach can improve my lap time by a second or 2 seconds after a weekend, then, I should drop this person. That may not be right, because at a certain point in your career, at your learning curve, sometimes you may have a bad habit, or sometimes you may be learning something that's different than what you naturally or have been trained or repetitively done, and you may actually go slower, and that may be a good thing.
Well, I've had drivers who say, would you come and coach me for a day? And I've done it many times, but I hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, hate is maybe the wrong word, but they're looking for a quick fix. And really what they want is they want to knock off a second off their lap time in one day. And sometimes that's doable, but depending on what the driver's strengths and weaknesses are, sometimes it's not going to happen entirely in that one day. And I think where you're going here is, sometimes it's a little bit of that 2 steps back for 3 steps forward. And the best situation is if you commit to some period of time. If you can tell a coach, I'm okay looking at doing this for 3 weekends or a whole season or 2 days or something like that, then I think the coach has to plan and strategize around how much time do I have? And because if a driver asks me, come and coach me for 1 day, I approach that day very differently than if a driver says, would you coach me this season? Because if it's this season, I'm already starting to map out, okay, we're going to work on this and this period of time, then this period of time. And you can actually accomplish a lot more. And obviously there's costs and all that kind of stuff, but it's a very different approach. And, if you're looking for a quick fix, I'm going to disagree with myself here for a minute.
Sure.
One of the things that I'm not a big fan of is a coach saying, I will drive your car. I'm going to go out and set a fast lap. Then you just look at my data and go and copy what I do or did. Right. And what I don't like about that is, if I did that for you, Bill, what have I taught you? I've taught you how to copy me. But your depth of understanding hasn't necessarily improved. Now, is there a time and a place for that? Yes, there is. And that's where I'm going to say I'm going to kind of disagree with myself in saying that there is a time and a place for that. And if it's a quick fix you're looking for, often that's a quick way of doing it. But what you may find is, you need another quick fix and another quick fix and another quick fix. And
or it's a different track.
Yeah, different track, different car, different conditions, or you've forgotten how to copy that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And So if you're looking for a little bit more of a long-term improvement, then don't look for the quick fix. And I'm not saying again that a coach who is looking long-term can't provide a quick fix, because one of the things that I believe a coach should always be doing is providing some, I'll call them quick wins. And, every now and then my job is to get you that fast lap. So you go, I can go faster. So builds confidence. And so there's some of that happens along the way, and you need to have some of that. But if you're looking for a quick fix every single lap, it's not going to work.
It could end up going in a bad way.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, even if they understand that the importance or the benefit of having some instruction, they don't know when they should start. They're like, it's kind of like the car. Well, I can't start racing until I do this, or I can't go get a coach until I know how to do this, or I can't go get instruction until I get to this lap time or this speed, or I know how to trail brake, or whatever arbitrary line in the sand they have. When is the best time to start working with somebody to improve? And is there a bad time, I guess? Because I'm kind of on the now, or yesterday is the best time, and today is pretty good.
Wow. So I don't think there's a bad time. I guess the best time would be from the very beginning.
Sure. Bad habits.
Yeah.
Bad habits are bad.
Yeah. They're tough to break. So if you have somebody that's helping you from the very beginning, yes. Is it always realistic? No, it's not. So then if you don't have the opportunity to do it from the very beginning or right now, when is? And I think for sure, certainly if you're at that, if you can recognize when maybe you're at a little bit of that plateau or frustration point where you're like, I'm just not improving, time to look for somebody to provide you some different insights. And by the way, it's kind of going back to what I was saying about the difference in coaches is the coach doesn't necessarily need to be an official coach. Mm-hmm. And because sometimes I've had drivers make a breakthrough with their driving, and it was because of a friend who has never been at a racetrack in their life came to the track, stood on a corner, afterwards said, "You look different going through that corner than all the other cars do." And the driver goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And the guy goes, "Well, I noticed that you're here and the other cars are over here, or your car doesn't sound as loud when it's coming out of the corner. Why would that be?"
Lights came on.
Yeah. So sometimes the person somebody that's a non-expert can be a really, really effective coach. And I won't bore you with a big, long story, but many years ago, I got asked to coach my nephew's lacrosse team. And I spent basically a week before the provincial championships in British Columbia, like a state championship in the US, and spent about a week coaching. And I'm putting those in air quotes so everybody can see that on the podcast here.
Work on that.
Yeah, I spent about a week working with them, coaching them, and they won the championship. And I'd never held a lacrosse stick in my life. But I asked questions and got them thinking about things, and changed their state of mind and all sorts of little things that helped them perform better than they ever had before. And I actually recently watched the series that's on Apple TV called Ted Lasso. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about an American, I think it was a college football coach who gets hired by a British soccer team to coach, and goes there and knows absolutely nothing about the sport. And it's a comedy, but there's an amazing amount of realism in the fact that here's a guy that doesn't know anything about the sport, but brings out the best performance in those people. And it's really a cool, and it's very funny. It's well written.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like I've got some TV homework to do.
Yeah,
now.
there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, got to do some research.
Yes. Well, I got, I can't tell if my family's pleased that I'm driving, thinks I'm good at driving, or thinks I'm really bad at driving. I got 7 different driving books this week for Christmas. So,
Ooh, nice.
yeah, you're only, I'm sorry, but you're only 3 of them, but
Oh
we could,
man.
I don't know. We'll work on it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
know
yeah,
I've got most of them already. So,
yeah.
um, so, so a lot of, our team has gotten a lot of benefit from going to HPDEs. We have certain HPD groups where we refer to them as track days. You just kind of go around in loop-de-loops and, hopefully you get better. And then we have other ones that are more skill-based or drill-based or just a more impactful level of instruction. But I think you need to find the one that fits what you're trying to do and fits your personality and fits your goals. But if you were to, somebody said, there's a 1-800 call Ross number, and somebody calls up and says, Ross, which is basically what this podcast is turning into.
Yeah.
Ross, I've got this opportunity to go to, 4 HBDEs with this one group in the next 2 months. Should I stay with one instructor, or should I get 4 different instructors, or does it really matter?
Oh, that's a tough one, because the simple answer would be, if the first instructor is really effective and you really click and communicate well together and you see improvement and it's helping you, stick with that person. Mm-hmm. If that person isn't, and again, careful, you're not looking for just that quick fix. But if you really think that you've got a good working relationship, then stick with that person. I also believe that there does come a point in time, though, and drivers that I coach that hire me for a full season or multiple seasons, at times I say, you need to go and work with somebody else, because you do need a different perspective. And just because this is the way I suggest you do it, I'm not saying that is the only way to do it. So, sorry, Bill, but there's no one right answer to that question, because I think it depends. And I've been
both could be good.
That to him. Yeah,
both could be good. Yeah.
But I think the other thing just to think about in doing the HPD, if you're a racer, and I know that you compete in AER, Champ Car, that kind of stuff, the low budget endurance racing, which I love.
Open invitation still. Just saying.
Yep. It's going to happen. And then you use HPDE track day events for learning.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of that. With one sort of caveat is be careful that you're not going to go and practice your late braking, outmaneuver, passing into the hairpin kind of stuff. You have to play by the spirit of the rules and the guidelines of that event you're participating in. And
for sure.
And know that I know some racers that'll go to those events and they go, I spent 3 hours on track today and I think I got 1 clear lap. And I go, did it help you? And they really think about it and they think, actually it did, because I had to learn how to control my frustration of not being able to pass wherever I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I think there's value in that. And I also strongly believe that there's rarely ever a time when going back and focusing on the basics is going to hurt you.
No, and I guess the point I would do to augment that would be, we chose as a team, or several of our teammates have chosen to use one association where we go to our HPDEs, and we started at level 1, even though we had raced many, many times and had some experience, not the best, not the worst, but we wanted to have that strong foundation and work our way up through one curriculum system, so that we didn't have potentially a hole in our knowledge base or our skill set that wasn't addressed through our instruction. So we're trying to work our way and progress from HPD 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to racing school or whatever. Becoming an instructor, it depends on the person, right? But I think that's important, because if you try to skip steps, especially if you don't have a why, you really, especially as you're getting better and assumedly going faster and getting more towards the limit, you really can get yourself into a situation where you don't understand how bad it could be or what to do.
Very true. Well, for some people, they'd say that's the thrill of the sport.
I like going home, though.
Yeah, I think most people do. And everybody's got a different level of risk they're willing to take.
For sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I know drivers who have been going to tracks for 30 years, and I don't think they've ever driven beyond 8/10. And there's that whole discussion around what is an 8/10. But, never.
That's a different question.
Never pushing right to the very edge, always leaving a nice cushion for them all the time. And in 30 years, they may have had 2 or 3 I got a little sideways one time, or maybe I dropped a wheel one time. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what? If they've been doing it for 30 years, man, are they having fun? It is
Absolutely.
Why they're doing it. And that is fantastic. I know other drivers who, if they're not kind of flirting on that edge most of the time, they get bored and want to go do something else. So, I actually think you and I talked about this on the first time I was on your podcast, where we talked about how accessible.
That's okay. Nobody heard it, so you can repeat it. So don't worry.
Okay. Come on. There was me. There was my mom. Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah.
The Fischer family listened.
Yeah. The sport is very accessible. If you, I've said this many times on this podcast too, I think, is if you're a tennis fan, you're a tennis fanatic, you cannot play at center court at Wimbledon.
Nope.
If you are a football fan, you cannot go and play at Dallas Cowboys Stadium, right? But if you're a racing fan, you can go and drive at COTA. You can go and drive at Road America. You can go drive at Sebring. And it's all accessible that way. And there's almost something for everybody. If you want to drive at 6/10 around a track, you can do that. If you want to drive at 10/10 around a track, you can do that. If you want to drive at 10/10 beside somebody else and back and forth and pass back and forth, you can do that. It's called IndyCar racing. If you want to drive at 8, 9, 9.5 and drive for a long period of time, there's all this low budget endurance racing series that are around. So there's a little bit there's something for everybody. If you want to do something that costs even less, and I think as a mental is as challenging from a mental perspective as anything, go autocross. It is amazing what you can learn from that. But and so there's something for everybody, and that's that's what's so awesome about the sport. And I'm pretty sure we're not convincing anybody that's listening to this. So
probably not. We refer to it. We've got a central focus, and then we cross train with everything else we can try because it's all fun. So.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've noticed about what you guys do is I've seen you on skid pads and HPD track day events and endurance races and all sorts of other things, autocross. I mean, so you guys do. I'm a big proponent of that approach.
Hey, we did something right. Woohoo!
Yeah. Well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Well,
yeah.
Your opinion's much more qualified than our opinion. So that is tremendous. I guess we've beaten that horse for a little bit. Is there anything that I may have missed?
Oh, maybe, but
a couple hours worth.
If you're game, can we do this again?
I'm always game, Ross. It's like talking to a friend about racing. Do you want to? Yes, I do. Thank you. So I will come back anytime you wish, sir.
Well, let's do more of these, and I'm never going to stop doing the other version of the podcast where I get to ask people questions because
sure.
That's what I love about doing the podcast is learning from other people. And to be honest, I learn from when somebody asks me a question and I think about it. It's coaching. You've been coaching me by asking me these questions and me having to think more deeply about how do I explain that. So that's.
Well, I just wanted to represent your listeners who may have a question, and they can definitely write into you and request their question to be asked. But the opportunity to talk to somebody who understands racing as well as you do is something that many, many, many people will never ever have until now. So hopefully we can help them.
And to that point, if you do have questions, email them to me. It's the old usual info@speedsecrets.com. And I won't look at the question and study it. I'll just pass it off to Bill, and Bill can ask me the question another time.
That's right. So please use small words. It will be fun. And honestly, I think that if the audience writes in with questions, they'll be much better than the ones that I've come up with. So they'll improve the segment. So we appreciate that.
So do you have any more questions for this one?
Well, the one thing that I thought about for this one was we started talking about a personal assessment of skill, and some people are good at that and some people aren't good at that. Do you have any tips for somebody to accurately do that? Because I think I'm poorest at braking. That may or may not be true, but that's what I think.
That is a difficult question. The one thing, and I guess this is a human nature kind of a thing, is the number of times. So when somebody reaches out to me and asks me to coach them, one of the things that I do is I send them a few questions, and I ask them, just answer these questions, send them back to me before we even kind of get into it.
Sure.
And the first question I usually ask is, what are you good at? What are your strengths as a driver? And it's amazing how many times people will go, well, I'm pretty good at maintaining focus, but I suck at braking, and I can't learn the line, and I don't understand anything about data. And I'm like, I didn't ask you what you wanted to improve.
Yeah.
So I would say most people have a very, very difficult time being honest. And I think some of it is people being a little humble. They don't want to sound like they're bragging by saying this is what I'm good at. But it's really important. I think, kind of to answer your question, I think to start there actually helps. If you take a piece of paper and put a line down the middle of it and you go, good, do better. And you just start listing things that you're pretty good at, that you think you're, and it's all relative, I'm not saying
nothing's a 10.
Right. Compared to Lewis Hamilton, how's your braking? Well, I suck. Compared to the people that you spend time on the track, actually, I'm better than most of them. Okay. So that's a good thing. Can you improve there? Yeah. But that's not, so if you write down all the things that you're good at, and by the way, to me, it's important that it's not just technique things, that I'm good at braking or good at a fast lap or whatever, but it's also, I'm good at staying focused when I'm on the track, or I'm not good at staying there. I get super nervous when I show up, or, I'm pretty good at staying relaxed in the car, and
traffic skills, or
So think beyond just the basic techniques and think about your overall approach. You might put on the list, I am really good at socializing in the paddock.
That's true.
You know what? That can be used as a strength at some point when you're at the track and you've got a problem with your car. There are certain people through the years that I've known where I'm at the track, I got a problem with the car. Go talk to Bill, because Bill knows everybody. And if anybody's going to have that part for me, Bill will know. So, it's that kind of thing. So that can be a strength.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with saying you're good at something. It doesn't mean you're the ultimate. Doesn't mean you're the best.
Right.
It just means relative to the rest of my skills, this one I'm pretty good at, or this one I think I need to work on. So,
and depending on where you're at and what your goals are, if you're trying to make a career as a professional race car driver, then you need to look at kind of that whole package of, you have to be obviously fast in the car, consistently fast in the car. You need to be able to give good feedback about the car's setup. You need to be a good marketing, you need to have a kind of a marketing hook. You need to be good with sponsors. You need to be good with media. You need to be, a good team player and build the team around you, because you're always going to have support staff and things like that. So if that's where you're trying to go with your driving, then there are more factors. If your goal is, I'd like to be a little better when I go to the track 4 times this coming season, the picture changes a little bit. It's what's most important. I want to have fun. And when I'm really nervous, I'm not having as much fun. Okay. So that helps you identify what it is you need to work on. Mm-hmm. And that may be more important than braking later. Or maybe it's the braking later that's causing that.
Right. And, sometimes it's the exact opposite of what you're thinking that would help you. Like if you're going in to a turn too quickly and you turn the wheel more, you actually turn the car less, and you need to turn the wheel less to get the car to turn more.
Yes. Which sounds like a line out of the Cars movie or something like that. But like a turn right to turn left. Yeah. But that goes to kind of one of the, and I use this all the time as an analogy of the good coaches are good at peeling back the layers of the onion. And a lot of times the driver will say, well, I make mistakes. Okay. That's the outside layer of the onion. Let's figure out why you make mistakes.
How many? Or how
big? I don't look far enough ahead. Oh, okay. Now that's one layer of the onion. Why don't you look far enough ahead? Is it a habit that you developed on the street? Or is it a level of fear, anxiety? Because human nature is, with fear, anxiety, we tend to kind of close in and our eyes and our vision tends to drop. Mm-hmm. So if I said to you, stop making so many mistakes, does that help? That's like telling a depressed person, be happy.
You should be happier.
You're right.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is peel back the layers of the onion to the point where you get to the point where you go, oh, the reason I make mistakes is because I'm not looking far enough ahead and my body is tense, and it's because I'm feeling a level of fear and anxiety. Or maybe it's I make mistakes because I'm tense. And what I find is if I physically pick my head up and look further ahead, I realize I don't feel like I'm going so fast. So I relax. And, maybe, you know what? I realize I've been holding my breath. And that triggers a response in the body and the mind. And so you peel back the layers of the onion and you go, when you go on track next session, all I want you to do is focus on breathing. I just want you to really just really relax, exhale as you come through fast corners. And you may find that you no longer make mistakes. But I think one of the problems that a lot of drivers have is they look at the first thing and go, that's the problem. Well, actually, that's not the problem. That's the effect of the problem. So peel back the layers of the onion. And I don't know whether I answered that question or not.
We answered several questions there. I think in my past, I had some work with some quality principles, and one of the techniques they like to use is the 5 whys, which is you ask why 5 times.
Yep.
To get to the root cause of the problem, and the root cause may not be. Sometimes it may not even be the driver. It may be the car and the driver doesn't get along for that particular set of conditions. So you may be fixing the wrong thing.
Yes. Is the 5 whys thing? Is that part of engineering processes? And
it is.
Yeah.
Useful sometimes, not often, but sometimes.
And I used to say years ago that keep asking questions, keep asking. But I tended to stay away from why questions. Like, why do you do that? Mm-hmm. And the reason I said that, and I still kind of go that way, but I think it's just how you say that question. If I look at you, go, Bill, why did you do that? It can sound personal. Yep. It can sound it, but if it's like, Bill, let's figure out kind of why that happened. Let's work together and figure out why that happened. That's a different way of looking at the why question.
Yeah, and then you can definitely see the difference in perspective if you're the one asking yourself the why. Because then there's less of it. So it's not a bad thing. We probably should do a question on what you should do when we're at the track, but we'll do that on another time.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ross. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. This has been fun. I love answering the questions. So thank you for being a host on the podcast today.
No worries. Anytime. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
One of the most puzzling questions that haunt almost all drivers, track day drivers and racers alike, is trying to figure out why things are not going well. The question is it me or is it the car? To answer that question, you need to listen. In his webinar, Reading Your Car, Ross will give you practical, hands-on advice and tips with one purpose: to make you and your car consistently faster. You'll learn how to sense the limits of your car, learn how to figure out if bad handling is because of you or because of the car, and understand what your car is trying to tell you. The result is that you will drive to the limit more consistently. The Reading Your Car webinar was conducted live and recorded. When you download it, you will be able to view, review, and learn from it over and over again. Go to speedsecrets.com/webinars and download Reading Your Car.